This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. All right, it's time for week 3's rewatch. And it's interesting because the Browns, at this time in the rewatch, right, they just lost to Pittsburgh. And I do think and stand on the fact that that was their worst performance of the year. And I got some pushback on that. And I think I want to address it because I thought there were some interesting points made in the pushback that I do feel like are worth going back and forth with a little bit. But the reason I think that this game is much worse, not this game, the second week game versus Pittsburgh was much worse than the Houston playoff game, is because ultimately you lost that Houston playoff game because you weren't healthy. Like, that's what really didn't give you a chance in that game. The quarterback that was in instead of the starter threw 2 pick sixes. Right? The safety that was in instead of the starter, Ronnie Hickman, was completely obliterated by CJ Stroud. The Pittsburgh game, you lost purely because you beat yourself. Like, there was no injury. Well, Nick Chubb got injured, but outside of that, you beat yourself in that game. You had multiple opportunities to win it. You have multiple opportunities to put it away. You had multiple opportunities to not lose. And at every opportunity, you made a decision that made it easier for you to lose. That's a loss that I think is more embarrassing and worse. Anyways, coming off of your worst performance of the year, I think the Cleveland Browns had their best overall performance of the year. It wasn't their most impressive win of the year. That's going to be the Baltimore game. But I do think that this was the cleanest game that they played almost all year. They only turned the ball over once. Even in some of the better games that the Browns play in this year, 1 turnover is rare. It's not the biggest upset of a game that you got. That was San Francisco, right? But it was a clean win. Like, it was a absolute domination on both sides of the ball. It was a win on both sides of the ball. It was a clean game that you played. Like, this is like, it wasn't interesting at any point. The Browns were clearly a better team than Tennessee, and they did everything that they needed to at every step of the way in order to separate themselves from Tennessee. And that's why I think that this is probably the best game that they played so far this year. So that's why I think it's so interesting that this happened kind of back to back. Let's get into some of the recap of this game. And look, the recap of this game is going to be relatively short because there's just not that much to recap. This was a straight pure ass whipping. First of all, Deshaun Watson, I thought, was very impressive in this game. I would go as far to say, and this is early in the rewatch, so maybe by the time I get to week 17, I reevaluate this comment. But right now, I watched this game and thought to myself, yeah, this was the best quarterbacked game that the Cleveland Browns had all season. Like, this game right here, week 3 versus Tennessee, that was the peak of quarterback play for the Cleveland Browns. I think a couple of things are true about this game. I think that the numbers are a bit deceptive. I'll get into that later. But when I watch this game, 2 things jump out to me. 1, this to me was the best quarterback game of the season. And 2, Myles Garrett. The numbers won't ever do Myles Garrett justice, but Myles Garrett legitimately horrified the Tennessee Titans in this game. He was a menace, and a menace right off the bat. To start this game out, he just was killing his team. 3 straight drives with pressure. Just got him off the field just 3 straight times. They could not do a single thing about him. Didn't get a stat, right? Didn't get a sack or anything. He would get 3.5 in this game. But just straight up, they had no answer for him. Not at all. And it was here at the start of this game. Another piece of context in this game, Amari Cooper, who did play well in this game, was playing through a groin injury that kept him out of practice all week. Elijah Moore early in this game fumbles. And I think the offense early in this game had a hard time finishing momentum. They were moving the ball well up and down the field. It would just be like, oh, Jerome Ford would drop a pass here, or, you throw the ball to Elijah Moore, you expect to get in a 2nd and 4 situation, but then he fumbles, right? Like you were having that kind of stuff pop up. But as far as your play-to-play execution, you were doing that quite well. Now, on that fumble that Elijah Moore had, I think one of the more interesting points of this game happens. Tennessee gets the ball at the 20-yard line. I believe this is a 0-3 game. The Browns are up 3. They get great field position, and Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward pushed them back like a clean 10-15 yards, which makes what was going to be like almost felt like a guaranteed touchdown into a field goal. And that's not the only time that they would do something like that in this game. Right here, you have, and I will not explain this any further, what is to me the craziest East Side claim of all time.
Kareem told us he was sick to his stomach watching Chubb carted off the field. He lives only about 8 minutes away from the facility. Of course, grew up on the east side of Cleveland. Prior to Willoughby High School, was working out with his old track coach.
So this is the play that went viral, and it's hilarious to me that like this is a play that kind of gets used as an example of like Deshaun Watson played bad all season when it's coming from a very well quarterback game. This is probably like one of 2 mistakes he makes in this game, and the other mistake's just a missed pass. But yeah, this is a crazy mistake, right? He throws this ball to Elijah Moore. It could have been a massive disaster. Also, another thing to point out, after this play, I think he does redeem himself. This throw to Amari Cooper that doesn't get completed because of a blatant pass interference was right on the money, and it was a beautiful throw. But that's not really what I'm here to talk about. I think that Deshaun Watson got hurt on this play because I see the play that everybody blames it on where he's running the ball late in the 3rd quarter and he takes it on the shoulder. But that's pretty much like pretty normal football contact, and it doesn't make sense that he like stretched muscles in his labrum-ish area. Like it doesn't make sense the injury that he had happened from a pure contact hit. To me, what makes more sense is that this hit that he took here was the beginning of all the shoulder issues that he would have for the rest of the season. Because look at how he lands on this play, like with his shoulder on the ground, and it gets like elongated, stretched out on the ground there. I think that's what opened that shoulder up to get easily damaged for the rest of this game is this hit. Now, he plays spectacular after taking this hit. It is worth noting. Like, played his best football of the year, in my opinion, in the best quarterback game of the season for the Cleveland Browns after this. But I do think that that's where that throwing shoulder, that's where the beginning of the end of his throwing shoulder for that season started to happen there is on that play. Gets an easy touchdown to Jerome Ford. And look, the story of this game, whenever we go to the defensive line just had the Titans offense in hell. Every play, penetration. Every play, incredible push on the defensive line. Like, I don't think the secondary was great in this game. I think DeAndre Hopkins was really able to touch Martin Emerson in this one. Like, he really got the better of Martin Emerson in this one. Greg Newsome didn't play in this game. It was Cam Mitchell instead, and he got touched up too a couple of times in this game. Like, I don't think the secondary played especially well in this one. I think Denzel was lights out, but outside of Denzel, it wasn't great. But it didn't matter because the defensive line was just destroying any chance that the Titans had of trying to manufacture anything to take advantage of the secondary not playing well. It was just body after body after body after body. It was just straight up defensive line. And it was like a different dude each time. Like, yeah, it's Miles most of the time, but now it's Zadarius a couple of times. And now it's Alex Wright, who I thought had a really good game in this one a couple of times. And it's Maurice Hurst and it's Shelby Harris. You know what I mean? There is Jordan Elliott. Like, it was just a constant flow of defensive. Obo Okoronkwo was balling in this one, right? It was a constant flow of defensive linemen in the backfield, and it was like a new dude every time. They got straight up dominated on the line of scrimmage in this one. Like the Browns just straight up dominated them. And like you get times where like JOK is like just literally throwing around Derrick Henry. It wasn't great for the Titans offensive line. And you could see that they were going to have issues for the rest of the season because they had nothing, absolutely nothing for the Cleveland Browns defensive line in this one. Now, 19 seconds left in the half. I think this is another turning point of the game. And I think actually this is where I'm going to say that the Titans lost the game. Like once this happened, their ability to win the game just dropped dramatically because this just wasn't something that they could come back from. So 19 seconds left in the half. The Titans get the ball to like the 20-yard line on a third down. I think they got one of their wide receivers open on a coverage bus. He gets to the 19-yard line. They have one timeout. They are so close to scoring. They throw the ball. Denzel Ward makes a great play on it, I believe. Second down. Okay. So you get the second down, and they throw the ball to the flat, which is an interesting choice. They threw the ball to the flat. Juan Thornhill makes a great tackle behind the line of scrimmage, in bounds, to stop the clock. That forces Mike Vrabel to call their last timeout. Mike Vrabel, the offensive coordinator, I believe Tim Kelly, who a lot of people want to hear in Cleveland because he was the same offensive coordinator in 2020 for the Houston Texans. So Tim Kelly decides to call a pass play, right? The idea being, hey, we're going to throw this thing out of bounds or in the end zone to try to score, stop the clock. If we don't get it, we have like 6 seconds left. We're going to run the field goal unit on, kick a field goal real quick. Okay. So they run the play, and almost immediately, Myles Garrett sacks Ryan Tannehill. And instead of the Titans getting 3 points, they get nothing. And that was it. Like you could see it in the Titans players' faces. You could see it in their sideline. They decided that was it. We're not winning today because you finally get a break. Like the Titans offense had been getting their ass beat all first half. And not just like, let me be clear here. Not just like, oh yeah, they're not moving the ball much. No, they are getting their ass beat. Like they're getting pushed back on that line every time. I believe they had 15 yards of total offense in the first half of this football game. It was a ass whooping. The Browns are just destroying them on the line of scrimmage. So that's been happening all game. You finally get a break. You finally get to the like 10, 15 yard line. And then you get pushed back 10 more yards. That's the first time it happened. Okay, cool. You get the ball again. You get your ass beat all over again for like a whole quarter. You finally break through again. You get this lucky ass play to this wide receiver. You get the ball close to the goal line. And you're like, hey, we're going to cut this to one score if we kick a field goal, or we can make this a 3-point game if we get a touchdown. And then you get nothing out of it. Yeah, that was a backbreaker for them. Like they did not really mount a serious effort to get back into this game after that moment. And it's obvious. They knew what it was. They knew they were done. They were getting dominated on both sides of the ball, quite frankly. Time of possession for Cleveland Browns offense in this one was straight up ridiculous. JOK's getting tossed. Well, JOK's tossing around Derrick Henry casually. Like the defensive line for the Browns is just straight up in the backfield every play. Denzel Ward is getting TFLs. It's not good. It's not looking good at all for the Titans. And then that happens. They never look like they wanted to win this game after that moment. I think it was obvious, right? The Browns offense came out. I thought Watson, to put this game away, was pretty masterful in this drive, right? He gets this beautiful throw in the third quarter. He takes that second hit to the shoulder. And what I thought was masterful about this drive, and look, it's not going to reflect much on the stat sheet because it's only like 80 yards of passing on that drive or whatever it was. But that was a drive that went straight through the quarterback room, straight through the quarterback position, right, to put the game away, because I believe this takes it to 20-3, which absolutely at that point puts the game away. He made excellent throws in those drives. He made, I thought, multiple pretty damn good throws in that drive. He ran the ball well when he was asked to run it, extended drives, made sure they got third downs, took a ton of time off the clock, just straight up physically dominated them in this one. And I thought, this is why I think this was probably the best quarterback game in of the season, right? At the end, it doesn't end with a touchdown stat for him, but we know what it is, right? The numbers in this game are a bit deceptive, even though they're not bad for Deshaun Watson, because there's a horrible call that happens with Amari Cooper that wipes away what would have probably been like another 20 yards, maybe even a touchdown for Amari Cooper, because the referee just like phantomly saw him step out of bounds. Like it never even came close to happening. But because of that, Amari misses out on a lot of yardage. Deshaun misses out on a lot of yardage. What the stats also don't reflect in this game is that the Titans got caught for multiple, like 4 or 5 pass interferences or defensive holdings that were deep down the field. 2 or 3 of them where I'm like, that pass definitely gets completed if that corner doesn't commit pass interference. And I look at this game and I think, if those things did not happen, if this game were played a little bit more clean on the Titans end, when it comes to like not getting penalties, you're probably looking at like a 300-yard, 4-touchdown game for Deshaun Watson. But because those factors happen, it was like a 230-yard game for him. And also he went out like halfway through the fourth because it was an ass whipping at that point in time. It just was the best quarterback game. Like there was no turnovers from the quarterback position. It was sound football. He made hella plays on 3rd down and long. This was a very cleanly quarterbacked game. If the Browns had this level of quarterback play in every game that they played in, again, they would have likely been the 1 seed, and maybe even by the time the playoffs started, the favorite to win the Super Bowl. I don't know if this would have been enough to beat Pat Mahomes, right? Like that's a whole nother thing. Deshaun's never beaten Pat, so I can't give him that benefit of the doubt, but it would have been enough to find out. Like for sure, it would have been enough to find out. And this is pretty much what you needed to do to close this game out. Deshaun gets another touchdown. Yeah, man. So my big takeaways from this game: Deshaun Watson played really well. I think probably the best quarterback play that we would get all season came from this game. Because even the Baltimore game where he played well in that second half, the first half was a bit more hit and miss, right, in that game. It was the more impressive one because of when it happened, the competition that you played against, and the circumstances surrounding it. But if we're just talking about like the best complete game from a quarterback all season by the Cleveland Browns, yeah, this is clearly, this was like franchise level quarterback play from Deshaun Watson. He made some great ass throws. He was able to kind of shake some pressure in the pocket and make some throws out of that. He was dynamic as a runner, dynamic as a passer, didn't turn the ball over. Yeah, the stats didn't look crazy, but the part of the reason the stats didn't look crazy is because he put DBs in some wild situations where they had to get pass interference in order to avoid giving up a touchdown. So, nah, man, he cooked in this one. Like, I don't know how people are acting like he didn't. He straight up cooked in this one. So yeah, that's basically my takeaway. The defense in this one was as dominant as you'll see. I don't want to go that far to say this was the best defensive line performance because like I know the San Francisco game is coming up soon. And I think I remember that as being one of them, but this Browns defensive line, unlike quarterback, like where you had maybe like 4 or 5 good quarterback performances all year, this defensive line has like 14 good defensive line performances. So it's much harder to delineate. But that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. You have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.